was your reaction, Nathan, to what transpired with Steele and Linden?
Yeah, look, it was found out on Sunday evening, and what we understand was decisions made in support of Howie when we got back from GWS. Actually, I found out on Saturday afternoon. It was there's a few bad decisions that were made beyond that. Clearly, as we understand, breaching the COVID protocols that have been in place. Both of the players are remorseful around their actions and have been cooperating with the AFL to make sure that first and foremost the health considerations and concerns are dealt with, and then any penalties that are handed down beyond that.
Linden was at the club today, or did you turn up early this morning? So is he all clear?
Yeah, so my understanding is that both players have been tested since and have remotely from the club, and both came back negative. Linden's had a second subsequent test, I believe, and was cleared to come back in today. And Steele has yet to be cleared to return to our environment, and we're still awaiting further advice on that. Yeah, I'm not sure of the details in regards to that. Probably not as relevant to what we're actually looking at from the COVID situation. Great for innuendo and scuttlebutt, but it doesn't really serve any purpose at this point. I'm yet to speak to Steele directly, given that he hasn't been able. I've spoken to him on the phone, but I mean, obviously there's a consideration of his leadership at this football club, which has been second to none, to be honest, and his development as a young man has been really good. This is an event, not a pattern, and we're treating it as such, and trying to support Steele through it, because clearly, as I said, his major emotion is embarrassment at the moment.
People have spoken about his character, and you touched on there, Nathan. Just how much of a shock was it because of the Steele in particular?
Yeah, well, I think what we need to remember is that the initial idea to go over to Howie's on the Saturday afternoon was in terms of love and care for his teammate. These circumstances are very different, and you do feel isolated. When we remove ourselves from the football club, we're for the large part in lockdown at home. We understand the sacrifices that we make to be able to partake in the game and to continue working and to continue playing the game. So Steele's intent was pure and based on support of his teammates, but so we also see that part of it as well. He's been a great support. He's obviously he's been playing great footy. He had a quiet one on Friday night, and potentially all of those things laid on top of one another. A couple of poor decisions were made, and we ended up being in this position as a result.
Nathan, do you think it's, from your perspective, like a broad perspective, the players find it difficult to adhere to the protocols that have been set to them by the AFL and the AFLPA?
Look, Tom, I don't think there's any doubt that it's that when you are asked to be held to a different standard to the rest of society, that it can be a little more difficult emotionally, mentally. I would say that is an AFL existence, though. We are, even though we're human, even though we bleed like everyone else, there is an expectation that a young 20-year-old AFL footballer needs to, or a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old AFL footballer needs to be beyond reproach compared to someone of the same age in normal society. So I think we're held to a higher standard and account generally. And in this particular instance, I think it is quite challenging because you're removed from the support, your normal support mechanisms and your normal support structures. And even though you can call people or you can be on Zoom, it's not the same as being in direct contact. So I think that does have an impact on every individual. It definitely has on me. So I can only imagine what it is for a young man who's in that same situation and having to sacrifice even more than they might have imagined to be a part of their profession and their sport.
Should Steele's standing in the game and his record as a leader and I guess the services given to the AFL, should that be taken into account with his punishment?
Oh look, I don't think any experience or time in the game should impact on the whatever penalty is handed down. We've seen precedents in recent weeks, and we know that it's very unlikely that Steele will escape a penalty, a suspension. So we're not expecting to see him this week, and nor Dunny for that matter, given that the consistency would be at least 1 week. For Steele, it's probably closer to what we saw with Charlie Spargo 2 or 3 weeks ago, sort of heading out to he was seeing a group of people. So what weighting the AFL put on the fact that Steele went and saw a friend in Daniel Wells who's outside of our bubble, I suppose. What weighting they put on that is up for them to decide. But I think it seems to be that there's a precedent with the Spargo penalty, and that's about what we're expecting.
Will his leadership position be part of any punishment as well, do you expect?
The club will go through its own processes and have its own conversations. I mean, as I said, Steele's a bit flummoxed about the events of the evening. As I said, he's very embarrassed, very contrite. He's been really forward with giving us any information that he has. He understands that he's made some poor decisions in terms of his alcohol intake, and then also with the COVID restrictions as they sit, and he understands that it's penalised his teammates in some sense and in some shape or form. So we'll have those conversations. Obviously, the penalty that's handed down by the AFL for the COVID breach will be a consideration in that, and we'll go through our processes when we get that opportunity to speak to Steele directly. Yeah, well, I think in the end time, we've got to keep a really open mind with what that looks like. The environment at the moment is so unpredictable, and it's, as the AFL have said consistently, every coach that you ask, it's changing regularly, it's changing daily. I'm not going to use the words agile and nimble. But it is important to keep an open mind with what we may have ahead of us. I think we're relatively advanced, I suppose, in understanding what our next 4 weeks look like for the most part. Beyond that, our players, our staff will be ready to make appropriate calls if we are away from home for longer. And obviously those with young families are the ones that are probably of most consequence in that regard, and we'll just try and be as prepared as we possibly can for every eventuality.
Does Adam Shaw come back in this week, Nathan?
Yeah, look, he's been in good form, and we asked him to play that extra game last week to bulletproof him going forward, and he hasn't missed a step, so he's ready to go.
How do you replace what Jeremy Howe brings
Norton for the first 4 weeks of the season?
Yeah, no, it's pretty hard to replace, what is and has been one of the the best defenders in the competition. He's statistically he is the best, and we think with his influence and the way that he was playing through this period and over the last couple of years, he's really elevated himself into the highest echelon of players, full stop. So no, I don't think no, you can't replace a player like Howie with one. And the reality is that we're a system-based football club. We've got the capacity of what we think is plug and play. We've got a really good understanding of the way that we want to impose our game style on the opposition, and we will look to put a back seven together that's going to be able to defend as well as we have to this point. We're pretty hard to move the ball against, we're pretty hard to score against, and Howie has been a strong part of that, but he hasn't been the only part. So our challenge is as a coaching group and then as a playing squad is to continue to impose our defensive intent, defend really well, and then find that ability to work the ball back into scoring positions and hopefully hit the scoreboard more. But in short, no, it's not a man for man consideration. That's going to be nearly impossible to do. But if we get 5% more from everyone, then maybe we'll be able to cover it.